I thought we'd kick this off today as an introduction. There's a lot of people in this room that don't know each other, so I'll start off. So my name's Kareem Kawaja. I am one of the founders of Liquid E-Juice. I've been within this industry for about 7 years now. I've been vaping for about 7 years, been active in the industry since about 2012. I know all of you, so that's fantastic. So this makes my life a lot easier. And I'm actually really looking forward to today's meeting on understanding everybody else's input on the same problems that I see that impact me as equally as they impact me. So what's our process of this whole event? So what we will be doing is, it's going to be very important for us to kind of go through every proposal one by one, right? So we have 10 different proposals, which we will have an opportunity to go back and talk on. Please don't mind this. This is just me showing an example of what the final product would look like. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go through each proposal one by one. And first we're going to identify what are the pain points within this proposal. So what are the issues? And that's where we're going to use our notepads, and we're going to squiggly on these notepads, whatever these issues are, and we're going to start posting them up on this chart. So proposal number 1, Health Canada proposes that all vaping products which contain nicotine display their nicotine concentration in milligrams/milliliters. Now, mind you, some of these proposals might not be a big issue. Some of these proposals we might go through very quickly. Some we might have a bigger discussion. So this is proposal number 1, right? So I think the first call is this is not an issue. This is a non-issue. So proposal number 2, to prevent consumers from being misled about the presence or the absence of nicotine, Health Canada proposes that any vaping product be considered to contain nicotine if nicotine present at concentration of 0.1 milligram per milliliter or higher.
100%. I'm in there with that.
All right. Health Canada proposes to require that vaping products that contain nicotine display warnings such as warning: this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is a highly addictive substance. Use of nicotine during pregnancy may harm your fetus. I think we're all good with this one too.
In particular circumstances, and that being exactly what Lars was referring to. For example, Aspire lately has been putting these very same labels on the atomizers, and there is zero trace of nicotine in an empty tank that's coming off the production line, and without even a coil inside it. I think there has to be a clear distinction for these labels, where if there is nicotine, or like we just discussed previously, even on a zero nic bottle, I agree that should probably still be on there.
Proposal 4. Health Canada proposes to require that products that contain vaping liquid display complete list of ingredients in descending order by weight.
Perhaps the call out is that we don't like the lack of definition around the word ingredients and what that actually means, whether it's trade secret or otherwise.
Yep.
And the other thing is we don't necessarily like the fact that we need to order it by weight, whereas if we did it by volume or percentage of the bottle, then it's a little bit more accurate.
Proposal number 5. Ooh, big. Yes, it is. So Health Canada proposes that manufacturers be required to report the information set outlined below. So the name of the business and the contact person, they want that to be sent out annually. Details about each vaping device are liquid, including the product name, model number, and nicotine concentration. Upon the introduction of each product and annually thereafter.
That's the time frame that they want it, upon introduction. So when each of those units is introduced, and then annually thereafter.
So what do they need to, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's, again, super vague.
So,
Because the product name, model number,
For every single vaping device, now what
They want to know that it doesn't change anything. Like if you do have a revision, you would say
For every
that.
SKU that you carry.
Yeah.
So let's say, for example, I got a flavor of juice. I keep the same flavor. If I tweak it next year, I'd have to go back to
Be
the
submitted.
To your point, what you're saying, if someone can't conform or can't afford to, if this has a cost associated with it, that's when you're going to see massive consolidations. That's where you're going to get 5 or 6 companies get together and form one company so they can play ball. At the end of the day, this is what we've all been waiting for. Tell us the rules so we can play this game, and hopefully we'll be able to afford to play it. And we, try to make steps and put ourselves in a position where we can play the rules.
Now, based on what they're asking for is basically the point. Proposal 6. Health Canada proposes that manufacturers of vaping products be required to provide supplementary information in a form, manner, and within the time frame specified once notified by the ministry. The form, manner, and time frame allowed by manufacturers to provide supplementary information would be specified in the request and could vary according to the nature of the information requested. Mark, could you kind of help us on this one a little bit? And kind of,
Again, that goes back to the whole issue on conformance. This is not dissimilar to what happens with new products being considered for availability in the marketplace. The fear I would have on this is that it gets you into a situation where you look at notices of compliance. And I just think that's a slippery slope. You got to be clear too. It's what they actually mean. So it goes back to your point about being at the table when we're drafting regulations.
Number 7. Health Canada proposes that manufacturers of vaping products be given a period of no more than 30 calendar days to address any deficiency in the reporting of information prescribed by the regulations, once they are notified of the deficiency by Health Canada. Should the manufacturer fail to address the deficiency, or should the information provided continue to be deficient, the sale of the product in question would be suspended until the missing information would be submitted to Health Canada, and the manufacturer would be informed accordingly.
It's actually good if your product has an issue with
Make it
it,
more complex.
it gets pulled off the shelves, right, instead of being able to be sold until you fix the issue. So if you have 30 days to fix it and you don't fix it in 30 days, everybody has to pull the product from the shelf because there's something wrong with that product, which I think is actually more than enough time.
Okay.
Then we should also look at some comparable best practices from other industries like
That's
pharma
great.
or something else.
That's
So
great.
I
Do you
think
know what
that
that-
is a
what
no-brainer,
those
so
are?
that we're aligned with other major industries, so we don't look like we're
Yeah.
internally focused, but we're.
Sure.
That's a great point. So, proposal 8. Health Canada proposes that manufacturers of vaping products be required to maintain all records, documents used to prepare their information reports for a period of six years after the end of the year to which the document relates. This documentation would have to be kept. Sorry, I got to glare on my screen from this thing. That's better. Kept in a form and a manner prescribed by the regulations so that it could be readily assessed, accessed, and viewed in Canada during audits. Wow, that was tough.
You got through it, buddy.
That was a tough one. Okay, so I think this again is relating to proposal 5, 6, and 7,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Documentation,
yeah.
storing documentation.
If not allowed in digital format, it'll cause.
That's-
Yeah, it has to allow that.
So that's a pain point.
Pain point for sure.
So soft copy versus
I think
bankers boxes. Proposal 9. Health Canada proposes to establish regulations that will specify the conditions upon which manufacturers, retailers, and others could use authorized relative risk statements in vaping promotions. The regulations would incorporate by reference a selection of authorized statements regarding the relative health risks of using vaping products or comparing the potential health effects arising from the use of vaping products relative to that of tobacco products. As an authorized statement may need to be amended from time to time to keep up with scientific knowledge, these regulations will also set out the requirement for public consultations such as amendments.
The best way to deal with this, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, is in public policy parlance, what they say is they do this clause by clause.
Sure.
So they'll get around the table and they'll parse out each sentence as a clause. So right now, you've got the first clause is the first sentence. So they're proposing to establish regulations that specify the conditions. So I think we gotta be very clear. So they're setting out for you, what are the conditions that you can be authorized to give relative risk statements as a consequence of a big product that you're selling. So we gotta understand what that sentence means and what they're trying to say. So what they're saying right there is not we're telling you can't do something. We're saying we're gonna set the conditions under which you can, under the prohibition that we set in the act. So I think we gotta be very clear. So we would do well to spend time going through each clause.
Sure.
And then deciding what they mean.
Everybody okay with that? Good idea?
I actually have a question after you finish.
And if I could, based on that, what the motivation is. Again, if you look at what the government has been saying, because we were very clear as a CVA when we went and lobbied the senators, and when we went and lobbied Health Canada directly on this, to say to them, are you going to put us in a position where we have a lexicon? Because if you put us in a position where we have a lexicon, if new words come based on science catching up, then we got a problem. So we gotta be very clear about the conditions under which they're putting us, because if we can't, that goes to your point, Joe, we can't put ourselves in a position to give any advice right now because you're not qualified.
Correct.
So we gotta put ourselves in a position based on that. A, how do we get qualified? Now we're talking about certification. And B, what can we say?
Okay, so proposal number 10. Health Canada proposes to establish regulations to help limit youth exposure to information and brand preference advertising of vaping products. These regulations would include restrictions on the type, medium, and content of advertising of vaping products. In line with the objectives of the proposed TVPA, restrictions would also be based on limiting advertising that has a high likelihood of being viewed by youth, while still allowing vaping product manufacturers to advertise their products and brands to adult smokers. Restrictions would therefore seek to limit advertising in or near locations that are attended predominantly by youth, such as schools, parks, recreational and sporting facilities. Restrictions would also be placed on advertising in certain media, for example, by either prohibiting advertisements on television and radio, or restrict the times of the day when such ads may appear, to be urged to limit youth exposure to.
So if I could, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
I think this is a very interesting proposal.
Absolutely.
And I think Health Canada is really leveling a bias here. So it looks to me as if they might be telling us that they would be very interested in not having any advertising at all. So that in of itself could be very problematic for the industry.
Yep.
As we're moving forward from a public health perspective with this as a viable alternative to smoking cigarettes. And we said to Health Canada very clearly, you prohibit this as an alternative to smoking, and you could really drive it underground. So you got to be very careful on what we, on how we respond to Proposal 10, so that we don't look like we're saying anything that would limit our future in terms of providing an incentive for this as opposed to smoking a cigarette.
Sure.
So if I could, it's again we go back to this whole thing about going clause by clause on this. I think in Proposal 10, as a solution, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to get into it right now, but we got to have a preamble to that sort of that
Sure.
suggests that.
Sure.
Well, education versus advertising is something that I still struggle with as a definition.